Hello everybody, and good morning, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and Quindy, our Disembodied Hands #1, along with, apparently, Justin, because I got text this morning from him. So apparently we have a second set of Disembodied Hands on deck. Hello. Yep, we started last week. And it's not the red you think it is. It's actually not red. In fact, none of it. Well, actually, we did use a little bit of here, hold on. We did use a little bit of Phoenix Red, but, like, we all know that Phoenix Red is actually Phoenix Orange, so there you go. Hello, everybody. But no, we started Vitanis last week. He is cool. I like him. I like him especially in Bones Black. And our colors that we started with are right there. So we started with Ebony Flesh, which is going to give us a very, very dark skin tone to start with. 1 second. Let me make sure we are in focus. And on this big block, it is hard to get him to sit. Hold on. There we go. So yeah, so we start with Ebony Flesh, which is what gives him that very, very dark skin tone. Yep, there we go. Quindy with the link so that y'all can see how we started the skin last time. And we brought it up with, of all things, a hair color, Auburn Shadow, 9241. And then we brought it up again with kind of a mix. This isn't pure Phoenix. It's Phoenix with just a tiny bit of the Auburn Shadow in it to shift it. Yes, did they actually fix? Did they actually fix the topic now? So it's not Ed and Dave anymore? I'm convinced that's why I'm getting low ratings. But yes. So today we're going to continue with the skin. And then we're going to talk some color theory. Yes, I know. Like we do, to decide on other colors. And I'm kind of between, I'm kind of like hung up between like a blue or a olivey green. Yeah. Kind of between those things right now, as far as looking at him and trying to think what I want to do with him. I do like olive green and black as colors for Warlocks. I think that it works quite well as an alternative to like the ever-present red or purple. Because they're not very compatible together, cursed, because they are close to each other on the color wheel. When you have colors that are close to each other on the color wheel, they fight. Especially green and blue love to fight. Absolutely, they adore fighting. So that is a thing. We could also go teal with it. If you really want to mix the two, the answer is to go teal. So, but we're not there yet. We're going to do skin first. So we will continue with that. You all can argue all you want, and then I will make a decision. Like I do. But those are your evident choices. You could go red with this. It would be a lot of red. You probably would want to kind of put a blue-black in there to kind of kick it apart. Something in the the inter areas here, you'd want to go with black and maybe some warm browns, but you could go red with the cloth down lower. Your problem with doing that is red is very eye-catching, and it would detract from the skin. It would make the screen. We're just talking general colors, but the other major color on this is the robe and the cape, which are kind of. He's got like many layers on him. Like he's got this kind of thing going on where he's got a secondary robe thing here, but not here. So that means this secondary robe thing is almost certainly going to go black, and we'll explain that. But as basic color composition, if you have an uneven color distribution, where as you can see, we've got his skirt thing, and we've definitely got his cape thing, but the cape thing definitely ends here. And then we've got, it's like, it looks like It ends there, but then it doesn't look like it ends there. Yeah, it's really weird. So he's essentially got an extraneous bit of cloth here that isn't connected to anything else, and it is not echoed on the other side. So, oh, I love olive green as a color for evil undead priests, especially for undead priests, because it's that rotting green color, Pendrake. Expand your mind. Olive green is for more than army men. I never paint army men, and I love olive green, so I'm going to use olive green on everything you look at. This is an olive green. Yes, it works, doesn't it? Yes. So, yes. Expand your olive green horizons. That's an order. Just kidding, just kidding. Anyway, so he's got an extraneous piece of cloth here in his sculpt, and that means that almost always the answer is to go neutral with it and just kind of keep it not in play. The other thing you could go is go very neutral with the cape and go for black and put an accent color in here. But we're going to have to deal with that eventually. We're not dealing with it today. We do have to keep it in mind. Well, I mean, no, it's very evident. I mean, look, you've got a definite cape that comes down here. You've got a definite break there. And then you've got this little robe thing. And it's because he's got an off-center design, right? So he's wearing stuff on this side, but he's not wearing stuff on this side. So it's probably like a poncho type thing. You just can't see where it's coming from or where it's going, which is inconvenient. It makes this mini a challenge to figure out colors for, because you've got an extra thing in there that you have to account for in addition to all this busy stuff. And that's partially why I wanted to do this model, because this is a very difficult composition. It's not your standard easy everything on one side is on the other side composition. And there's a lot of details that you have to figure out what colors are going to be where. So it doesn't matter what it is. Like, who cares what it is? All that matters is that it is taking up a potential block of color here. And you can still see the cape coming out here. So essentially this little thing, whatever it is going to be centered between the skirt color and the cape color. So when you're figuring out composition, you got to take that into effect. Yeah, it's an off-center design, and Izzy loves to do this. Izzy loves to do off-center designs. She really likes to make make something on this side different from this side, whether it's just a shoulder pad or whatever, but she likes to do that. It makes for a more interesting visual concept for sure, but it makes it harder to paint. So anyway, I'm going to mix up some auburn shadow. I'm not going to, well, I guess my Ebony Flesh I probably do want to use as a liner to be consistent. Well, maybe. I mean, it's a piece of cloth. It doesn't really matter whether it's a wrap or whether it's whether it's just a little poncho thing or who knows what it is, really. I don't really care what it is. As a painter, I don't care. It's just another piece of cloth. The only thing that matters to me is how I'm going to balance its color with the other stuff on all the sides of it, and if it's going to have a different texture. Although because it's got a fancy border, you would argue that the texture of this is actually going to be nicer and smoother than the texture of this flea-bitten cloak back here. Notice how it's got holes in it. And the rough edge on here. So it's like he's wearing a very nice piece of cloth in between the other pieces of cloth. Although there is a little nick. Now that I look, there is a little nick in the corner there. But it's not nearly as roughed up as some of this other stuff. So yeah, so this is something that if you were painting this model, or if you had started this model, you might just bowl through and think this is a part of the cloak, and you'd be fine probably, but technically it's not. So it's either a problem or an opportunity, depending on what you want to do. There are also other options to do that you can do with things like this. There's a couple of Templar models from the Warlord Templar line that are like this, that have a lot of different layers of cloth, where you're going to run out of color options really quick, and it's all overlapping, and it's very difficult. So this is a fun one to do because it is like that. It might be fun, but it make for like not a great color composition unless you can balance it out, Pendrake. Like if you split it down here, you'd want to go probably red here, black here, and then you'd repeat your red over here. That is one way to deal with it. As long as you can, let's see, if we've got black here, red here, black here, red. Yes, that does work. That does work. You just got to make sure it all ties in. You got to make sure it all I think it ties in. I think it, well, maybe not. Yeah, well, you've got a border there. Maybe. Not my choice. I don't like doing that. I don't like, unless it's intrinsic to the character. Like, the time when it would make sense to split this down the middle is if he's got a coat of arms, or if he's got, like, a sigil of his god or something, where that's the coat of arms or the sigil is the half and half with maybe an emblem in the middle. Otherwise, I'm not a fan of it. I don't see why. Like, for that sort of thing, I'd have to have, like, it'd have to be a Harlequin model or something like that, where a lot of the clothes are done in motley and with split color schemes and patterns. And I definitely don't want to do that with this guy. It's not really a good tactic on a model that's already got so much stuff. Because you're already doing so much detail, so... Except they don't. Except they wear olive green and purple, too. And dark blue, Pendrake. See, red and black are really predictable, and I've done a fair amount of red lately, so I really don't want to do red on this one. Because we did the really good red on our orc. And if you want to see that red and how I did it, you can go back and watch the half-orc wizard video, Von Soleil. We did a really cool black-red velvet on her dress. And if I was doing evil, that's usually what I reach for. Yeah, exactly, Grey Wolf. Yeah, I do not like, unless I'm doing vampires, in which case I wholeheartedly embrace the trope. I like to kind of switch up my bad guys and give them a different color from here, here or there. Unless there's a story reason why, I tend to shy away from that. Or unless it's like a blood mage or something. If it's something that more black and red makes sense, or like an evil fire wizard, then you're like right there. He's a warlock. He could be almost anything. So that's my thinking. And Pendrake is also perfectly right, and his choices are perfectly valid. It's just not where I want to take this figure. I don't want to be predictable with this figure. Plus, as I said, we already did red recently, so kind of trying to get away from it. Well, yeah, but that's also, those are like fairly, party colored is also what you call a poodle that is white with black, by the way. It's a term in dog coats. But to totally get off topic, it's totally a thing, and it was totally a historical thing. But it usually also, because it was in the Renaissance, everything there got complicated, visually complicated. And this model is already visually complicated. So you don't necessarily want to give it more of that. On the other hand, like I said, if you're going to do a freehand sigil or some kind of coat of arms where it makes sense, like the Germans and the Italians, often did, like their house coat of arms, right? That's why they had the party colored stuff. Because they had more than one color in their family seal. But this guy, you could do it on the back, but then you wouldn't be able to necessarily carry it around to the front. There's just too much stuff already on there. So, yep, they are not, essentially the party-colored poodle is not allowed to show in the AKC. This is how dumb the AKC is. Pardon me for anybody out there who's an AKC person, but sometimes I just look at the dog color rules and I say, but genetic diversity. So yeah, so hate me if you want. But yes, there are party-colored poodles out there. They are not allowed to show an AKC, but they're there. And I've seen some very nice ones. But the poodle people want their breed to be solid colored, so they don't breed for that gene. Except for a couple of them who are just like, we just like the color pattern and to heck with showing. But yeah, it is actually a term. that is used for more than one thing. I don't think it's used in horses, though. Then you've got the Pinto and you've got different names for those breeds. I'm going to mix a little bit of my Auburn into my Phoenix. And I am going to take up my Phoenix just pure. I'm going to mix in a little bit of Explosion Orange. This is what we're using to highlight today. Yeah, for sure, Mistim. I mean, there's a big movement against that now. You know what the funny thing about that is, though, Mistim? Okay, so here's the funny. And I actually had a Rottweiler breeder actually tell me this with much chagrin in her voice. But they've stopped docking Rottweiler tails. A lot of breeders have. But the problem is that their breed standard, which is, you know, the blueprint for how the breed should look, like always just said, a straight, short tail. And now that they're letting the tails grow out, they're finding out that a lot of Rottweilers have these curly tails. And it's driving them batty. And I just want to laugh. I know it's terrible, but I just want to laugh. Yeah, it's Pinto or paint. There are some other terms for the specific spotting patterns too. Yeah, piebald, skewbald, yeah. Depends on the breed, like, right? Because the paint is a breed. Like, it's weird too. There are like breeds that are named after colors, and then there are color patterns within breeds and horses. It gets very complicated. And I'm not a horse expert. I can speak to being a fairly knowledgeable dog person, but I cannot speak to being a horse person. Yeah, right. Yeah, but it's just amusing because, you know, they never had to worry about it. They always just, you know, docked the tails. And so they never knew what the tails actually looked like. It's just funny. It's just funny to me. As part of a breed that has a tail that is not supposed to be curly and that we are constantly fighting with that, it's funny. But anyway. Justice. But yeah, I grew up with a breed that traditionally had docked tails, and some breeders still do it. And I think actually maybe it's German short-haired pointers, but I prefer the long tail. So I'm happy that crap is going out the window. All right, so then we've got a little bit. Let me show you my color. Everything is coming together. My pentad is coming together. Although technically, here, let me zoom out. Technically, the liner, the Ebony Flesh, I'm only keeping around for lining. So my pentad yet has 2 slots open yet. And so we're going to go up. Although I did leave a little bit of this in the shadows, so I probably should just go up 1 and see where I am. So I'm going to use my Explosion Orange pretty much straight up. So Explosion is a nice color, guys. It's a nice color when you want an orange that is definitely orange, but that is just a little muted. Isn't like super bright. Like when you look at Sunrise is super bright orange. But this has a little bit of a burnt orange to it, just a tiny bit. That makes the Explosion Orange, and I talked about oranges in my Patreon this month. I just put out a $5 PDF on them with a couple of different color choices. And one of your midtones, or your one of the series is the bright fiery orange, and one of them is the more natural orange. But Explosion is really nice that way. It gives you a pretty bright orange that would be good on any pumpkin, but it's not like screaming eyeball artificial plastic or fire orange like Sunrise. So if you want a more natural orange, if you are working with a color scheme that is not bright, but you still want to use orange, this could be your best highlight. 9219 Explosion. And we're going to use it on this because I don't want I don't want candy colored skin. I want more natural skin. That's why I went with the Auburn Shadow and dropping a little bit of Auburn Shadow into my 9005. Thank you for the link, Quindy. My Patreon is patreon.com/paintingbig. Hey, I had somebody from Patreon contact me yesterday. And I don't know if I'm going to do it, but apparently they have like a Patreon ambassadors program that they kind of target people who they really like how they interact with their community, and apparently I am one of those people. So they're like asking me if I'll participate in their ambassadors program. I'm not sure what it involves, but I think I'm going to contact them and, see what it involves. it's cool to be contacted and told you're doing a good job. So, yay. And I have had the Patreon going for a while now. I kind of wonder how many Patreons get started and then just sputter out, and how many keep going. Thank you, Kerniko. Like, but don't you wonder? Like, I wonder the percentage of Patreons, and this, of course, is probably not, like, you know, anything they want to publicize because they like to encourage people to keep going, but I wonder how many Patreons actually keep going for, like, as long as mine. Like, we're coming up on 3 years, right? I mean, it has to be a fair portion of them, because when I take classes, like when I've taken seminars for Patreon before, there's a lot of people out there who have been out there for a while. But I wonder what percentage. I'm sure a lot of people start a Patreon and then kind of just it fizzles out because they try and they don't succeed quickly, and so then they lose enthusiasm for it, which is definitely a thing. It's hard to keep up enthusiasm when it's a slog. I'm going to get my previous highlight color. I want to round out this muscle a bit. It's a little bit too dark. It's like got this dark line down the middle. So I want to bring in a little bit of my previous red and make a rounder highlight. It got a little bit too linear. And this is definitely a bulgy muscle, so it wants to be, wants to look round. That's much better. Now it's standing out. And I want to maybe bring out a little bit more of this one back here too. Now the more red I spread, notice the more red it will start to look and the less dark it will start to look. Just those two changes made a huge difference in the color of this area. So I'm always like trying to remind you guys that, you know, how much area your color, each of your highlights or your midtone takes up is going to control the appearance of that area. It's totally true. And if you want something to stay a certain color, you've got to keep it that color. The majority of the area has to stay that color. Even when you're highlighting and shading, you have to make sure you don't lose it. I just coached somebody the other day who like had gone way overboard with their highlights, and they had completely lost their midtone. Like the skin on the model looked like vampire, and it was supposed to be a darker skinned person. And it's just surface control. It's easy to, when you start highlighting, go really, really broad with it because you think, oh, well, all this should be highlighted, but then you forget to compensate, make sure that your midtone is still out there. So I'm going to brighten up the face a bit. You can see as I'm adding more of this Phoenix color, we are getting not only a lighter colored skin tone, a more red skin tone, but we're also getting more contrast, right? You can start seeing things more. Yeah, it's a common thing. It's very common when painters start, like I see it a lot. I saw it a lot at Paint Club. I see it a lot almost with almost everybody I've taught from who is at that level. It's something that happens. So don't feel that you are not alone. You are not alone, and it is totally fixable. You just have to get conscious about it and say, okay, how much of my midtone did I keep here? So now that brings out the face a lot better. Let's bring in a little bit more of my old Phoenix color. Oh, I missed a spot down here, so that's one reason to have the Ebony Flesh all mixed up. There we go. Let's bring up that hand a little bit more. That's awesome. Yeah, I really like Patreon for pretty much everything. I mean, I mean, people who don't like it, but for many creatives, including myself, it is a complete, like, without it, I could not do what I do. I could not sit and do this show every day. I would have to go out and get a real job. Like, having the stability of a monthly paycheck at a certain level, like, it enables creative people to do what they want to do, like, without, you know, to do more stuff for their audience and to really, really have a shot at doing this for a living. Like, it's so important. Like, I thank the gods for my Patreon, like, every day. Plus, it's such a great place between the Patreon and the Discord integration. It's such a great place to talk to you guys, like, who are my patrons, like, just communicate with you, to be able to give little critiques or to give a little bit of feedback and answer questions quick, you know. It's just really nice. And sometimes it takes me a little while to get to it, because I make one day a week to be my social media day for the most part, because it can suck up so much time otherwise. And I need to be making PDFs and videos, but yeah, I really like how Patreon enables you to talk directly with your audience, like to find your audience and then speak to them. That's why when my book's eventually published, like, at least I want to have a Discord, but I haven't figured out all the logistics yet. But I do wish Patreon, I mentioned this before, but I do wish Patreon would allow one person to have 2 different Patreons. Because when I publish my book, like, it would be cool if the people who like my writing could also support me, but I don't, they're not going to want the painting stuff, so. Alrighty. So we're getting those little fingers. See that, how that makes the hand like a lighter color now. We're not nearly as dark. We can totally see all the details, but the skin still reads as dark. Yay, Thormel, yay, oranges. And who knew? It was just, I had to do oranges to get a new patron. Thank you, Thormel. I hope you like it. It gives you 2 progressions. I'm doing pentats right now, so it'll give you 2 different options for orange. The Color Workshop one, if you're interested in color choices and what, you know, and some thoughts about the paint, hopefully it'll be valuable to you. I really like orange. I kind of, after I wrote that PDF, I kind of made a little resolution of myself to do more orange. East Coast and hits at lunchtime. Yeah, that's on purpose, actually. We wanted to be more accessible for people. We know you all tend to work during the day, so, or many of you do. Oh, speaking of the writing, I got a really nice rejection today. Like, I love these nice rejections, because that sounds funny probably to a lot of people where they're like, I got another rejection. I am not that person. Let's just get that straight. I'm not that person to like go, rejection. No. It's beyond, yeah, I've moved on. I've moved on. I got a really nice rejection today. Let's see. That's right. I had determined that was skin, so it's good that I mixed up everything so I could go back and fill that in. It was a hard call, but I think it is. So I'm going to do that. And just based on the fact that he's got a bare arm over here. But yeah, I got a really nice rejection today. And you know that these people, like, the gratifying thing about getting rejections on my writing right now is that I'm submitting to agents who handle people like Tom Clancy. You know, people who handle bestsellers. Those are the agents that I'm like submitting to now. So when one of those agents takes time out of their day to actually write me a note that's more personalized and not a form rejection, you know you're doing well at that point. But yeah, she was like, This is really good writing, and it doesn't fit my thing, but please continue submitting it because, you know, this business is really subjective, and this is, you know, this is good quality writing, you know. So, yes. That's a win for me. Doesn't matter that she couldn't rep me. That kind of feedback tells you that you should publish your stuff, you know, even if you don't get an agent eventually. And I knew that my rejections were, my first submissions were bound to be a lot of rejections because I am submitting to top agents. I also appreciate that she got back to me promptly. Like, agents can sit on your query for like 3 months or longer. They could just like not ever reply to you. Like, usually they'll tell you if they're that kind of agency where if you don't hear from us, assume it's a no. But it still leaves you sitting there for, you know, 8 weeks or more. There we go. So just getting a little bit of light over here on this thing here. Getting my Phoenix red and a little bit of explosion orange. Now, you do have to ask yourself how red you want the skin tone to be. And if you don't want it, if you want it more orange, then I wouldn't have used Phoenix red in the middle here. I would have maybe gone straight from auburn to explosion and started doing mixes of these guys instead of going through the red spectrum. But I did want the red because Hellborn. So I started there. Alrighty, now I want to do little bits. Let me make sure I've got to do the other side here. So we have to, this is actually gives you the contrast. This is what we were starting on. It's got auburn and it's got a little bit of the Phoenix red on it. Compare that to the other side and how vibrant that is and how it's still dark. It's still a dark skin tone, but it's got the highlights coming up on it. So that's what we want to do to the other side now. So we'll take our Phoenix red with just a little bit of auburn shadow in it. We're going to start with that and re-emphasize the areas that we want to bring out. There we go. So we're rounding out. Remember to always keep your highlight at the shape of the area. So this is a rounded muscle. So keep your highlight shape round. Don't make a line or a square or anything else. Try to kind of match the shape of the muscle. Even as a baby painter, you can do that. That's something that you can start doing that will help your models look more alive. Is to look at the shape of the surface that you're going to highlight and stick to that shape. When it's tiny, you can just put a little spot highlight on it. And sometimes you'll have to get this intensity. Now, we did apply this color before, but when you just do one coat and you've thinned your paint like I have, it may benefit you to do 2 coats instead of switching to another color right away. And I do this often. Gives you better blends in general. That'd be a lot of orange pendrake, but you could rock it. I would say definitely get an accentuating color, green or purple, probably. You could even do like a dark blue if you wanted to really go something different that isn't plant-like. It's up to you. I want the different red. There we go. So down here you get a lot less highlight. So we kind of shrink our highlight because it's starting to be on the underside of the arm here. We still want to bring out this little muscle detail, but we don't want to put as much of our red on there. And then down here, we just want to generally bring in the color so you can see it. I also have a mold line there. I'm going to tackle it right now. It happens. Mold lines happen. Oh, wait. Is that cloth? Oh, no, it's cloth. Hey, I get to paint something over. That happens. See, it happens even to Anne's that, you know, you're painting and painting and then you realize, no, that area is not skin. Thank you. It's cloth. The model is looking at me with a look of disgust because he's that kind of guy. I'm just going to get that out of there. There. It was mold line that probably confused my eye on that one. All right, well, that's good then. I can just reblock this in, totally in black or a dark color. And if I want to do a lighter cloth on this area, then I'll need to paint it a different way. It's like he's got like a wrap of cloth here, so we'll just have to figure it out. Oh, good, Julia. Excellent. New colors are always fun. Now the hand is kind of curling under here, so we do not want to highlight it quite as high as with the other areas. We can get this knuckle. There's always a question of like, how much is too much when you're highlighting? Because you want the underside of things to be darker, but you still need those details to come out. So I'm going to say that this color, because if I was looking at this as a pentad, like these 5 colors, if I included that color in, then this is my highest highlight for the underside of anything should be this. Never go up to these on the underside of areas. Just a general rule. Pentads are not like we're not really doing like naturalistic highlighting with pentads. I do understand that, but this is a way to start thinking about how you are painting the undersides of stuff. Pentads is a good thing to have to start thinking about it. To kind of understand what you're trying to aim for. All right, let's put slightly brighter highlights on this now. Yeah, it's true. Vines tend not to be orange. They need photosynthesis somewhere. But I guess if it's a monster, it survives by eating, meat. So then again, even Venus flytraps have like green vines, green stems. So, depends on if you're going magical or natural. But remember also that orange does tend to be a pretty hot color for the eyes, and it can be overwhelming. So if you put it a lot of places, you need to also provide places on the model for the viewer to look that aren't totally smacking them in the face with that orange. Otherwise, it'll just kind of be obnoxious. Also referred to as places for the viewer's eye to rest. I'm going to actually bring in my auburn shadow and block in these really dark ebony flesh shadows on everything that's up at the top. Because on the top of the surface, you shouldn't have any of those super dark shadows. There we go. All right. But yeah, fall is a great time to switch up your colors a lot. A lot of us don't use a lot of yellow or orange. And so, while you're in the mood and while it's all over the place, look around and get inspiration for color schemes. Actually, let me show you guys. I got an awesome new leaf the other day. Where is my awesome leaf? When I'm out on my walk, I photograph flowers and leaves for color inspiration. This is a really good leaf. Isn't that leaf awesome? So, like, that's a really cool one. That's why I'm happy about phone cameras getting so good. Is because then I can do, and actually that's really cool. It even has a little tiny yellow bit at the end of its little stem. It's probably is. There's a ton of Japanese maples out here, Kerniko. It's my favorite tree, so it makes me happy. We have a little one right next to our front door that I'm trying to keep alive. And I had several when I was doing bonsai. But sadly, the Texas heat attacked and killed them, because Texas. Pretty much anybody who does bonsai, if you mention Japanese maples and you're in Texas, they give you this look. Like this, what are you thinking? Oh, you silly fool, you will learn soon enough look. It's fine in the spring and fall. It's just like it murders the poor guys in the summer. And the fact that the Texas weather can flip so fast, like, definitely killed at least 2 of my Japanese maples. Like, one day it was 70 and the next day it was ice storming, and they just couldn't handle it. They were frost shocked. But yeah, like, out on your walk, I take pictures of a ton of different flowers because there's some really cool ones. And flowers are a lovely inspiration for colors. Especially the subtleties where they're like kind of blending from one to another. There's some beautiful orange and peach roses out here. And I keep being tempted to paint something in those colors. I just need to find the right model. And that's totally fair, by the way. If you like have a great color that you are itching to use, just find a model for it. Excuse to buy a new model or excuse to start a new model, depending if you already have 60 zillion of them. I certainly have enough that I could find something suitable. There we go. So we're good. We've got our red on both sides now. Now we need to go up to our orange. I'll probably go up to the orange kind of mixed with the brightest red. Yeah, I do all mine by color. I don't do them in triads because I usually make my own triads. So, like, that's how I come up with this cool stuff for you guys for all the color workshop PDFs on my Patreon. It's the fact that I love to try new triad ideas. Remember, you can make anything work together if you just mix a little bit of each thing into the next one. It might look really weird eventually because, you know, when you get to your highlights, having like teal highlighted with brown might look a little odd. But you can do it. And sometimes you can find really cool looks that way. But be aware when you pick a color to highlight with that is not warmer than your underlying color, that it will look maybe a little off because we're used to sunlight being very warm. So if you started with a red and you highlight with a teal, a really pale teal, it's going to look like your light that's falling on the model is teal, which can give you a really cool effect like it did on my Swampy Dragon that I did for Reaper a long time ago. But it could also, like, if you're not ready for that, if you weren't aiming for that, it can be a weird outcome. So just be conscious of it. So we're just going to make the very top highlight here, that orange. And up on this broad muscle, we're going to try to keep it a little bit contained, really just to the top. And again, we're going to try to make it a round highlight because this is a round surface. And the highlight should reflect it. You can still see a little bit of it. Yeah, the ultimate, I mean, it's just like, you just need to organize your paints in whatever way makes sense to you and works for you. because you're the one who's going to be hunting for it when you want to find it. So and you know, even though my drawer here, I'm still sorting just by colors, not by triads. Sometimes I have a full triad in there. You know, I'll have every paint from a given triad, but I'll organize it by color instead. And my greater collection is still in like transparent bags because it just makes it much easier for me to glance at the bag and know where the color is. Is the color in here, or did I put it somewhere else? Did it accidentally go roaming into the other painting room? You know, stuff like that. So the more you highlight, the lighter and orangier everything goes. So if you don't want the skin to go really orange, then make sure your highlights stay very small. And on lower surfaces, which are just peeking out, just make that highlight a pinpoint, really. Or a little edge. It's a tiny bit. See those little touches of orange that really make everything pop out. But they're just little touches. They're going to influence the main color a little bit. And notice how the color has shifted on this model. You know, we started from kind of a red-brown, right, at the beginning of this stream. And then we went to a very much more vibrant red. And now we're introducing our orange, and it's changing again. So yet another example of how when you are highlighting with different colors, the color, overall appearing color of your model will shift. Now, if I decided that I didn't like that shift to orange, I could take my Phoenix Red here or there and do a glaze over the whole thing, and it would knock that orange right down. But as it happens, I wanted this kind of orangey shift from the beginning, which is why I chose these colors. So I wanted this to be a color scheme for skin that you could use on an Efreet very convincingly. Like this would be really good on an Efreeti. Especially, you know, with a little bit more orangey poppy highlights like embers. You could do some cool stuff with this. And sometimes you just want a tiny little bit of detailing. And you really don't want to go very far with it. Yeah, I used to do that a lot, Kirst, and then I just decided, now I do keep a small selection of paints that are always on my table, because I'm always reaching for them. Always. Right now, those are Death Knight Black from the Gloom and Grave set, Oxide Brown, Brown Liner, Walnut Brown, Blackened Brown, Russet Brown, and Rich Leather. And then I've got Black and White, and I've got Brush On Sealer. Although actually my Brush On Sealer should go and live in the Sealers area over here. I do have a Primer and Sealers area. So there, now that's in a good place. And then sometimes I keep an off-white up here, like Osirian Sand if I know I might use it, because I use a lot of Osirian Sand. And also Bleached Linen tends to hover over here. But otherwise, I try to put away everything after every painting session. It took a while to get in that habit. I had to really remind myself. But I'm one of those people where if my painting area gets too cluttered, I just lose all inspiration. Like I start feeling kind of suffocated and like I can't create. So it's become very rewarding for me to just take the couple extra minutes it takes to just slot away the paints I've been using. So just a little bit of that top orange at just the top of the hand, the top of the thumb, maybe a tiny touch on this knuckle here. to bring out the details of the hand. Here, your goal is to bring out detail. There's lovely detail sculpted on this hand, and the hand is an important part of the model, the gesture, whether he's casting a spell or threatening somebody or just saying bye, dude. But it's an important part of his story right now. He's focused in that direction. So spending extra time on the hand and bringing out the very well sculpted details in that case is worth it. A lot of times hands are just kind of like a means to hold a weapon, but here the hand is definitely part of the entire purpose of the model. Like the whole feel and mood of the model. And so when you've got a well sculpted hand where that's the hello Stephens, yeah. We're doing Tiefling skin or Hellborn, to use the Reaper term, skin today. But yeah, when you've got a hand that's definitely like the whole point of the model, then spend some time painting it when it's well sculpted. A lot of time hands are done kind of fast too, or hands are not sculpted as well as this. I like to think that he's actually like casting a spell. Like we could totally do like a bolt of lightning coming off his hand or something. I might do that. I'd have to wreck my paint job to do it, but it is doable still. That would be the very last thing we did, though. And you'd have to be kind of careful. You don't want it to like go too far out with spell effects when you've got a small model and you don't have a diorama. If you have a diorama and you've got an opponent over here, then you can absolutely go that far. So I'm going to get a little bit here of the interior of the hand. And these fingers are curling up toward the light, so they're going to get the light. There we are. A little bit more of a highlight because of that, and this part of the hand is going to get a broader highlight as well. Because the hand is slightly tilted up toward the light, so we should put a little bit more light in here. There we are. That's nice and well defined. And because we've done tight detailing on it, it also draws the eye. So it's part of the whole model. It's effectively integrating with everything. It's not an afterthought. It's definitely purposeful. Cold and windy where you are, huh? I didn't know that Greece got cold and windy. I guess it must. You always see the pictures where it's all just nice and bright and sunny. But I suppose that Greece varies just like every other place in the world, right? I just never think about it. Get a little bit of highlight down there. A little bit of highlight in here. Yeah, actually that is a great one. That I could totally see that Shadow Raven. Come on, guys. I told you it wouldn't work. That's where you need the two inept, like, demons over here, like, totally having broken something. And he's, like, just really angry at them. Very, very funny. That's if you want to turn your model into comedy. Sometimes that's cool. But sometimes you just want somebody who's kicking butt. I tend to like kicking butt a little bit better than comedy. Oh, Quindy. Sorry you're dealing with that. Alright, so I've got my highlights, my nice orange highlights on the face on this side. Bringing in the eye and the teeth is going to help a lot here. I need to figure out what the beard color is going to be too. That can define the face a little bit better. He's got eyebrows as well. He's got a lot of hair on his face, essentially. It sounds weird, but it's true. And that means that your skin color isn't going to play as major a part on the face. It'll be interacting with the beard and the mustache. And I've kind of been thinking about, I'm going to try to get the eyelid here. I kind of been thinking about the color for the beard and the hair, but I haven't come down on anything yet. I mean, black is the easy answer, which doesn't interfere too much. I wouldn't do red because you've already got a lot of that in play. I may do a weird color. I don't know. Thinking about it. Going to continue to think about it. It'll depend a lot on what other colors I decide to use on the model. Because on a supernatural character like this, the hair can be an accent color. Absolutely. Am I offline? I didn't think so. Yeah, I was going to say. Oh, Athens is somewhat like Vegas. Okay, that makes sense, Steven's World. Thank you. I guess all those arid places do get very cold at times of the year. At least, especially at night. My parents are in Arizona often during the winter, and that's so... It's really nice during the day. Like, it's, 70, sunny, dry. But then it gets really cold at night. And when you wake up, the house is just freezing because my dad hates to turn the heat up. This has been true since I was a small child. It hasn't changed. Oh, you're about 2 miles from the beach. Cool. We are a lot farther from a beach. We have to drive it's about a 45 minute drive from here to get to the ocean. But still, it's less than an hour to get to the ocean. Which is very different from the rest of my places I've lived where I've been very inland. Very inland. Just bringing in my oranges here now to pick up just those little places where I really want to pop the highlight. Yeah, that's why my alarm is set on my phone, Twisted Oma. Even if you lose power, unless your phone is totally out of juice, it's going to wake you up at the right time. There we go. All right. A little bit of highlight here on this bone on the wrist. Like, really the anatomy on this is really good. Like, Bobby has picked up, like, features of anatomy that makes sense. And it helps really... It's really a nice sculpt. That's all I can say. It's a really, really nice sculpt. A bit more of a highlight there. A bit more of a highlight here. Fingers are linear, so you do make your highlights linear as well. I want to bring up this finger a little bit more. It is on top of everything else. And I do have a little bit of a mold line that I've missed right at the end of that index finger. I am going to go in and try to get that out because it's bugging me. So let's see. There it is. It's right across the top. Just a little thread, plastic. While I've got the colors out to touch it up, it makes sense to do this now. Otherwise, you're liable to just put it off and never do it. That's a little better. Just be real delicate. Use a really light weight on your knife. And go slow and don't rush. Rushing is the recipe for disaster on this sort of thing. There, much better. Now I can go back in and touch up. Get my Ebony Flesh, which is my darkest shadow and liner. Get that just a little bit more water in there. We've been going for about an hour. About an hour is, at least in this climate, is about when you want to kind of check your paint and your palette. Make sure that it's not drying out if you still need it to be good. So if you see that it dries around the edges a little bit, throw a drop of water into it. Or a brush, a wet brush full of water. A drop out of a dropper bottle and a brush full of water are about the same. So I tend to use them interchangeably. If you're using a brush that's about this size. You spend your roll. I knew another guy who used to do that, Kirst. Like, there was a guy at Games Workshop who found mold line removal relaxing, and so he would essentially just go into the metal room and grab a model bit and just spend his break removing the mold line. Speaking of which, I found another mold line. I'm going to remove it. But yeah, when you can find your zen when you're removing mold lines, that's the best. So I'll often, if I'm doing it, I'll do it in the evening and just kind of sit at my other desk in the other room and put on some music and chill and remove mold lines. I find that it helps if I sit down specifically, like to say, I'm not going to paint tonight, but I'm going to do prep. And just get a whole bunch of things prepped at once. And then I find that very, very rewarding, because then I have a bunch of models that are ready to go. Oh, yeah. Like, if you're depending on something medically, then it makes absolute sense to get a generator. Because you can't trust the power grid these days. Weird, Quindy, yeah. Did the power system get all screwed up because of the hurricane? Is that why you're still getting these residual kind of outages, do you think? It's just so weird. Power companies are so weird. Ooh, but hey guys, speaking of like outages and annoyances, like we just got a notice that our house qualifies for FiOS, for fiber optic. So I'm like, oh yes, the internet here is like not reliable. Like, give me my FiOS back. I would like my incredible upload speeds, thank you. Give me my 1,000 megabyte per second upload. That's what I want. Yeah, well, they had to, right? People need power. So they probably did some quick fixes, and now they're still having to deal with the fallout of that. Yeah, that makes sense. Alrighty. Got that. Want to touch up these fingers from where I just corrected that mold line. Now, it's worth saying at this point that the colors that you choose for the clothing of this model, and this carries off of Pendrake's comment about red and black also, the colors you choose for the clothing of this model are going to influence how people perceive the character. So, a sickly olive green It's going to be kind of neutral, but suggest evil, especially if it's done with a lot of black and bone along with it. Whereas if you went with a blue, the character would get more ambiguous because a lot of people consider blue kind of a good guy's color. So then you might have a Hellborn who's actually maybe good alignment, even though he's got this big bony staff. I mean, it is a demon head staff, so maybe he killed a demon to get it. You know? So the colors that you choose are going to be like perceived by people in various cultures differently. And usually it is a cultural bias. This is one of the things I like about the Betty Edwards color book. And there's another one out there that talks about cultural perception of color, how it shifts. Because in like Israel, blue is a protective color, right? Blue door, paint your door blue to ward off evil spirits. But then, you know, there's other perceptions of that color in other parts of the world. So you can think about that stuff if you want when you're choosing colors. Although, just keep in mind that, you know, things will be perceived differently. Like red in China is good luck, not evil. So you can't really control in the end how your model is perceived because of color bias. This is really what the end all be all is. And so you should really choose to kind of please yourself. And if you are trying to like definitely say this guy is evil, then you should keep that in mind, like in your details, in your basing, in your things like that, in the symbols and sigils that you use on the model, to suggest whether it's a villain or a hero or something in between. So as we move into deciding that, I think I am going to actually do my eyes real quick though. Hold on. I'm going to get that. You can really grab any off-white. I'm actually using 9447 Undead Flesh for the whites of these eyes. There is a method to my madness. It is an off-white. It is kind of a brownish, grayish, greenish off-white. A brownish gray off-white is what you typically want for eyeballs. But the fact that it's greenish also means that it's going to act well with his red skin tones. And it may even give me a little more contrast. So I'm going to use these and see if that's a good color for eyeballs. I'm going to do 3 drops. Drop a couple of drops of water in there because there's a lot of white in that color. When you've got a lot of white, you can afford to add a little extra water. Neural! Oh, look at that! Double sub-anniversary, double sub-anniversary, double sub-anniversary, happy double sub-anniversary. There. I almost garbled that one. My mouth is like, today. It's tripping over itself. I've got too much motivation. It's a double sub-anniversary. Yes. I don't know what I'm going to do when I have to sing Happy Quadruple Sub-anniversary. But I have to practice for that one. Quadruple Sub-anniversary. Ugh. Alrighty. Alright, eyeballs. Let's see. So I did a 3-2, which might be too much water. I might have to drop a little bit more in there. Yeah, I do. Usually a 2-1 is better for eyeballs. Because this is just a little bit too thin. So, again, using a weird color for our eyeball whites, Undead Flesh, which is nonetheless a great off-white to use with them. I mostly just want to get those eyes in there and maybe the teeth. Because there's just like, it looks like a void on camera with this, and I want the details to come out. It's bugging me. The void on camera is bugging me, and I want to fix it. How about that? That's a little better. So I'm going 2-1, paint to water with the white here. And I'm going to start, remember, to move the model, move the model around to where you can get a comfortable painting angle on it. Don't contort your hand. If you're trying to get better at painting fine detail, contorting your hand will never give you a good result, and it will also not help establish muscle memory to make this easier for you in the future. Painting fine detail is all about muscle memory. A little bit more. So everything you do from the time you start painting these little guys helps you build muscle memory. There we go, it's a little better. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the white of that eye. Good. Let's do this one. This one's easier. Like I don't have to turn it upside down to get it. But that really is the answer for getting these off eyes, guys. When you're using your regular hand and it's like this where you'd have to contort to get to it. Don't do it. Just turn it upside down and tackle it from the angle that you would normally tackle an eyeball from if you were painting comfortably. That's why having it on a block or something that you can hold on to is really nice. Turn the model around very easily and still have something to brace your hand on. He's definitely snarling, so his eyes are narrowed. Try to get as much white area as you can. Like, if the sculpt provides for the area, try to take advantage of all of it. Because you're going to need that room, that horizontal room, to try to put a pupil in there. So, the iris and pupil combo. Can I get these teeth from this angle? I think I might have to turn it upside down to get the teeth. Bobby had a really, really good, like, he obviously liked this sculpt because the details are fantastic. So there's the lower teeth. Oh. And when the paint doesn't come off your brush, it means you need more water on your brush and to reload your paint. I made that tooth a little bit too close to the bottom there. I'm going to refill in the mouth real quick. I needed to look at it from the side where I could see where the divider between the two teeth is. Blue tack, yeah, the GW one doesn't need blue tack, but the GW one also has trouble with heavier models in my experience. So as long as you've got plastic or a smaller resin, you're perfectly okay with the GW holder. But I had trouble with it whenever the item in it got heavy enough. And that includes like a resin bust. It just wanted to pop out. So I will admit, I do like the old-fashioned blue tack. My GW holder is just kind of, I don't know, somewhere off in the ether at the moment. But I have infinite wooden blocks. I bought big packs of the 1 and 2 inch. Yeah. All right, let's tackle these teeth again. This time, let's see. Let's see if I can get really close. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. All right, let's get really close and try to stay in camera. Now from the side, what I'm talking about is I can see from when I blacked in, I can see the upper and lower teeth. So, whereas when the upper lip drops down, you can't see the upper teeth anymore because they're snarling, I guess. Yeah, you can mostly see the bottom teeth. So I'm going to hit the bottom teeth, and then the upper teeth are really only on either corner of the mouth. So, load up your brush, unload your brush, because you do not want a puddle of paint ruining everything. that teeth. And the upper teeth, which I have to touch up. No, I've never really done it, Pendrake. For one thing, I don't usually keep... We have rubber bands in the house, but it just seems like a lot of extra effort to try to twist them around to make it stay reliably. And I like blue tack. Like, I really do like blue tack. I like how I can kind of curl up the edges around the edge of the base if I want to. Also, the rubber bands are gonna, inevitably you're gonna have to put them over the base of the model. So as with my blue tack here, I can actually paint all around the base. If I had rubber bands, I'd have to take them off to get that. That's the hobby holder, Shadow Raven. It is cool. I just took my hobby holder top off because I had Lizette on it, if you'll remember. But I had to find the rest of the hobby holder. It's around here somewhere. And the problem with it was that for streaming, the hobby holder is less ideal because it's got a very long body and I'm like right on the end of my table so I can keep my back straight and my shoulders back while I paint. Yeah, game envy. So for streaming, the hobby holder is not as good, but it is much more comfortable to hold than a block. So it's really nice that way. So for regular painting, definitely. All right, so now I have to look at the other side of the mouth here. And this is where we get into trouble because it's really hard to reach. So we kind of have to look at it. I can mostly see it. I think I'm going to come at it from this direction. Once again, you really want to get it where you can comfortably paint because you're doing a fine detail. Yeah, okay. I think I can do this. I think it's going to be this. So right on camera. Yeah, you guys aren't going to be able to see it when I do it. Okay, if I do it there. I'm trying. The problem here is that you need to, I need to show you guys, but I also need to paint this. So essentially, again, the answer is get a comfortable position for your brush. So we've got a little bit of like blobbing there going on, but the teeth do go all the way across. So I need to touch up with the Ebony Flesh. And that's easy because that's a line between the teeth and the lower lip. So at least I can see that really easily. Yeah, that's good. And you can't really see the top teeth on the other side of the mouth. So he's snarling more on one side than the other. Now I want to bring those teeth in and make them a little more solid. So I'm going to grab more of my white. And now that I can see, now that I've got a basic line in there, now it's much easier to go in and touch up what's already there. And then we go back. And that's it's not as bright in person as it looks on screen, but it definitely does bring out the face a bit more. I don't have just black holes where the eyes and mouth were. There. Yeah, that's good. So that will definitely draw the attention. The other thing I'm probably going to end up doing is making these horns lighter as well. And that is another trick. We can keep the beard and the hair dark then, but we can make the horns lighter to draw the eye up there. And what I'll probably do is block that in right now because I have all the colors. So I'm going to grab Ebony Flesh and mix it with my Undead Flesh, which is going to give me kind of a purpley brown. almost ashen brown color. And if I want this to be warmer, if I decide I want to warm these horns up a little bit, I could instead bring in some yellow or mix some tan into this color. So like if I mix in a little bit of something yellower like rich leather, then I can get a little more warmth. Here, let me shake this up. Just a tiny bit of it. That drop that you see right there at the top. Gonna bring it in. That'll warm it up nicely. Just a little bit. Then I can continue adding white into this. Well, we'll start with that color. And that will mean that we'll be in a good position. If we finish these horns, we'll be in a great position to decide on main colors for the model next time we paint this model. So I want to highlight these little striations in the horn. Whenever you've got horns that are painted this nice or sculpted in this way, where you've got the really nice little pattern, definitely take advantage of that. So this is just our starting out color. You can use the side of the brush to pick up that edge there. You can decide if you want a little bit of this color down below as well. There is the sculpt does have detail down there because Bobby's a pro. So that's your start. Other side. And this is one of those times where, and I'll talk about this actually in a video for next month on the Patreon, but one of those times where you really can't do any extra texture on these horns because the sculpted texture is very close and precise and it doesn't leave you room to freehand texture. There we go, again using the side of the brush to just pick up that line that Bobby has sculpted between the top and the bottom level of the horn. There. We've got that pattern on both sides. Now we're going to grab our off-white, our Undead Flesh, and we're going to throw another hit of that in there. Once again, if I decide I want to warm this up, I can add even a little bit more of my rich leather. I really like rich leather as a warmer-upper when you're building kind of a brown, it's kind of a grayish brown, but you want it just a little warmer. It's a real good fix for that. So this is kind of a grayish brown. Now we're going to hit a little bit higher up on the horns. We also need to ask ourselves if we're going to make the tips of the horns darker or lighter. So it's time to kind of think about that. You can always put in this detail and then just glaze it to make it lighter or darker at the end. And that's actually what I would recommend. Get your details done, then decide if it needs tuning. Notice how light this looks against the dark. Like, it's really not that light yet, but because it's right up against all this very dark brown, it looks much lighter than it is. And often people will enjoy making horns darker toward the base or lighter toward the base. And both appear in nature, both styles. So, though often with horns, it's going to darken toward the tip. You can certainly do it the other way. A lot of people paint them the other way. It's a fantasy creature. There is no right or wrong. Just figure out which way you're going to go for and go for it. So at this point, yeah, I think I want to do one more level of highlighting and then do a glaze. Hey, Coolpack. How's it going? We started this model, he's only on his second session. And we've got his skin done, got the eyes locked in. We are getting the horns figured out. And then next time we work on this model, we're going to really work on his overall color scheme. So a lot of color theory. Just one more level of highlight here. Just to really... Because remember, when I glaze, I'm going to lose a lot of this. Either I'm going to be glazing lighter and I'm going to lose some of the detailing, or I'm going to be glazing darker and the small areas are going to go darker. So I do need to remember to account for that. So after I put this layer of highlighting on, we'll do a quick glaze. And then we'll end. Because it's time for my walk. I've got a lot of Patreon stuff to play with today. I'm working hard on my paint-along videos. Alrighty. There. I think I'm going to go lighter toward the face. That's a tactical choice as well as just a practical one, because it's going to draw attention toward the face. So I'm going to take this color that I just used and I'm going to make a glaze of it. So I'm going to hit it with a brush full of water, a brush full of paint, brush full of water, so it's at least a 1-to-1. Then kind of watch it, see how it falls off surfaces. I think I want one more brush full of water. 2-to-1. That's about where most glazes, if you're going to glaze with a light color like I am, you usually want to start at least 2-to-1. That's about where you want it. Yeah, Major, so that's the great thing about this model is you can do anything with it. When it's a Tiefling or a Hellborn or anything like that, there are no wrong answers. I chose to go red. So I'm going to brush this glaze just over this area. Kind of blend it in a little bit. Make sure that it's not pooling anywhere. You never want your glaze to pool. You always want it to just kind of sit on the surface like a filter. So see how there's the contrast for you. See how that makes that horn much lighter. So we'll put this one on. Again, remember, don't let it pool. You want it to just color the top and make it lighter. It'll also act to blend in some things, which is the nice thing about glazes, is it also makes your layering look nicer. another layer. Yeah, actually there's, this is a really weird color progression, Major. It's actually these guys with the Ebony Flesh color from Bones at the very, very dark. That was the starter. So we actually used a hair color for this, followed by a red-orange and an orange-orange. So there's actually not a true red in the skin tone. The Phoenix Red is the closest, but it's a very orange red. And the base is like actually red-brown. Yeah, I wanted a dark skin tone for this guy. Yep, I think the horns are pretty good right now. I'm going to do one more glaze on this one side and then we'll call it. I want to bring this edge up a little. Yeah, this one is Bones. I really like the Bones Black version of this model. I think the Bones Black is my favorite version. I've looked at the metal, and I actually think the Bones Black is superior. I actually like painting metal to a point. But the plastics are getting really good nowadays, so you can't count them out. There we go. There's our nice little horns. Still got a lot of dark in there, but that will help. So when we look at him now from a distance, you can really, those horns really draw your eye up right now. So that's great. That's exactly what I want. To be able to, like, even with a dark skin tone, you still have to get people to look up here at the important part of the model. So that's what we're working on right now. Alrighty, that is what we did today. We actually took the skin tone from like kind of this color on up to all of this color, brought in a lot of more red oranges, and ultimately highlighted with an explosion orange to really pop some details. We talked about the importance of painting crisp details on parts of the model that are important gesturally, like what is happening here, what are the parts of the model that really show the action, and here it's his expression and his hand. So we spent a lot of time getting the details right and punching highlights on those areas, because when they're sculpted that well, it rewards you to spend the time. So that is what we've done today. We also talked a little bit about possibilities for colors on the other part of the model, and we pointed out that he is an off-centered composition where this side is different from this side, including having an extra layer of cloth over here that is not over here, and the challenges that that's going to make for us as we move forward with our color scheme. So that's what we talked about today. And if you missed it, I hope you go back and catch the VOD, and eventually, if you missed that, the YouTube. Tomorrow, we are going to be starting our first bust on stream. Dun, dun, dun. So we're going to be doing this tomorrow, guys. We're going to be working on prep work on I haven't even removed a mold line or anything or any of the sprues, so that we can talk about prep work on this model. So we'll probably work a lot on the hat, and I'll probably also talk about the prep work that you need for the rest of this, like filling holes and stuff. We may actually get to do some of that as well. You guys asked for a prep work stream on this resin, so I'm going to give you one. All right, so tune in tomorrow for sure. If you are all interested in trying a bust, if you own this one that was put out at ReaperCon, then yes. So we're going to talk about that, and while we prep, we're going to decide on a skin color. And it does not have to be traditional. So, yes, I will see you guys tomorrow. I hope you have a fantastic day. Do we have any shows coming up later today? Do we have Crafty Creative? Luca. Right. We've got Luca. All right, I'll stop holding up Luca. Y'all have a great day, okay? Bye-bye.